Oh, man. What's it like when an Irishman gets sunburned?
I would say it's like every day. You know, it's like it's the same thing as having coffee every morning. So half my family has this Irish background, right? And then the other half, no joke, were Porch Creek Indians. So when we like would get together, family reunions, we got like the darkies over here and the Mick whatever's over here. You know, it was crazy when you looked at the mix. So my aunt on my dad's side, my dad's sister, she's tan year round. It can be January 1st, and she's rocking the tan. The other side, you know, red hair, all that, they go out for 30 minutes, and it's like the rest of their week is ruined. That's how my sister was. And maybe my youngest son will be like that. I was in the middle. So I would have to get burned a couple times to get a little bit of a base coat. But, you know, I'd have to go through at least the 2 weeks of getting burned. Which, you know, back in the day, look, do you ever remember when you were a kid, anybody talking about, hey, don't be in the sun for skin cancer?
Not so much. No.
I mean, I don't remember as a kid people even like being worried about suntan lotion. It was just like, hey, man, go out there and it is what it is. Wear a hat. You know, that was it. Yeah. So I remember as a kid, like when that summertime came around, you're out of school, the first thing you did was go out and get burned. You gotta go through the pain to get the gain.
Exactly. And like I took my first season lick yesterday, and people all around are trying to tell me how to fix it, and it's like, just give me 2 days. Let this base figure itself out,
right? And
I'll be good the rest of the summer. I don't need these remedies, you know. So
so we were talking about that earlier. Like, everybody has these home remedies, and my grandmother, no joke, had an aloe plant, right? So while all the other kids who were getting burned, going through the same process, you know, their grandmother or their mom would get them the stuff from Walgreens, the aloe lotion. I had leaves. You know, we would cut the leaf, and it's not even really a leaf. It's almost like a cactus-like thing. So we would cut it in half. It's slimy. It's like putting a slug on you, and that's how you'd be. And just for a couple hours, you got this slug leaf just chilling on you. But man, it worked. It 100% worked.
Would you say that there is a difference between the actual plant, like a Band-Aid, or rubbing the lotion?
All right, so the lotion, like this is how, when I finally got rich enough to be in the lotion game, you know, when I was able to have my own money, and I remember when I realized that there was lotion. I remember looking at Walgreens, and it was like this green jelly looking stuff, and I was like, aloe lotion? So there's no plant? You know, it was like mind blowing. But when you would use the lotion, it would only last like maybe a couple minutes, like maybe 20, 30 minutes. I would have the plant on me all night. You know, it would literally like stick to you. It was how sticky this thing was. So, oh yeah, we were plant game for a long time. Long time. But I do remember as a kid, when you would get burned and your buddies got burned, it was just like kind of like a thing. Mm-hmm. You know, your skin's peeling off like a madman, his skin's peeling off. No big deal.
One of my favorite things about the summer is a mild burn with a sweatshirt in a nice air-conditioned restaurant or bar. That's my favorite feeling. But it has to be the right amount of sun. You know?
Right. You can't go too heavy.
No.
Look, this is like the same thing as I remember the first times I started seeing kids wearing like rash guard type shirts to the beach, right? You remember that? And I just remember thinking, man, these kids' parents must be some real losers. You know, it's like this. I just felt so bad for the kid. Now you go to the beach, everybody. That's the way to be. Mm-hmm. You got to have your little rash guard shirt on. You know, to me, it was like when I first saw it, I would think to myself, man, they may be from like Michigan. Because remember back in the day, at least in Pensacola, we would have these people from Michigan, Minnesota who would come down here even before summer would start, and these knuckleheads would be swimming out in the water. Mm-hmm. The water would be like 60 degrees, and they're, this is the greatest, it feels like bath water. You're like, what is wrong with these people? But that's how it was.
It was 100%.
These Canadians, all that kind of stuff showing up, out swimming. Oh, it's the greatest thing in the world.
I was a little embarrassed when I saw it at first. You know, I was a lifeguard out there for a minute, so you got to see we considered them crazy, but the water was warm to them.
Oh yeah.
So like, the lifeguards aren't even in the water.
Yeah, like we would have like hoodies on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they would just be out there swimming.
Yeah, we got wetsuits in the tower if they need help.
Right.
And they're just
Right.
out there in
And they're just out
trunks.
swimming, and it would always be like a gray day. Like it wasn't like the summer sun. It's like this gray day, and they're white as ghost. Almost translucent, just out there swimming, having a great time. God bless them, man. God bless those guys who were coming in the 80s and 90s. So a lot has happened since the last time we talked. A lot of crazy stuff.
A lot. You've been busy as heck.
Yes. We had a 2-week, it was more 1-week murder trial so in Pensacola, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, when there's going to be a trial, Monday is always the day we pick juries. So in all these different counties, what happens is Monday, potential jurors show up, and it doesn't matter what kind of case you got. DUIs, murders, car accidents, Monday's the day you pick, always. Other places, Miami, Orlando, you can pick on any given day. You could pick on a Wednesday, you could pick on a Thursday, whatever. Okay, but here in our area, we only pick on Mondays. So that murder trial was so big, the Friday before we picked the jury, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're picking the jury on Monday, we're taking depositions of expert witnesses for like major testimony. That's how big the trial was, is we were still getting ready to have the trial. I mean, really, I thought that we were going to have to take depositions. I thought we were going to have to depose essentially brand new witnesses during the trial. And for a big case like that, that's unheard of. That's crazy.
When you pick a jury, can it start same day?
Yeah, absolutely. We call that a pick and go. Normally it doesn't, because on the criminal side, what you got to imagine is we try more cases on the criminal side than they ever do on the civil side. I mean, it's like 100 to 1. I'm being serious. So every Monday, if a particular judge on the criminal side is picking juries, they're normally picking more than one case. Okay, so we'll spend all day long picking 2 to 3, 4 cases. And because of that, we can't start that day. So like, let's say I was the first one to pick. I pick my jury. Then the next people up, they pick their jury. So the judge doesn't know how long it's going to take, and my case can't start until all that's resolved. So normally on the criminal side, we don't do pick and goes, but on the civil side, because they don't have that many trials, when they're going to pick a jury, normally they're the only ones picking. So they can pick that jury and then immediately begin. But like I said, I mean, 100 to 1, maybe even more, is the amount of criminal trials we have versus civil trials. And I've tried both cases. I've tried 100+ criminal cases easily. I can't give you the exact number, but we're in the hundreds. And I've tried civil cases. And the interesting thing about criminal cases, and I am 100% positive on this at this point after my last murder trial. That was the 5th murder trial I've had, and that was a big case. When jurors show up, when everyday citizens who are called for jury duty, when they show up for their jury service and it's a criminal case, even if it's a nasty case, like even if it's a murder case or a case involving children, they will try to do their best to be a good juror, because in their mind it's like a civic duty. You know what I'm saying? It's like this, that is what they were taught from a child, that the jury system's about. That's what they see on TV, Law and Order and yada yada. So on the criminal side, they have this almost like a calling to try to do their best, because they think it's part of our society. It's a framework, the fabric. It's part of their duty. On the civil side, they're much more lackadaisical. And I'm not saying they don't do a good job or they don't care, but the urgency, the focus, I can see it a lot more on the criminal side than I do on the civil side. On the criminal side, it's like they understand that this is high stakes. Where on the civil side, they're like, well, this is only about money.
So a friend of mine just got selected, right?
Yeah.
And it must have been a sit and go because it was same day. There was no alternates.
Uh-huh.
Somebody got sick, and it was over.
Yeah, so I think that case was a federal case.
Okay.
So on the federal side, the amount of cases that they actually have open is like this.
Okay.
Okay. On the state side, down state court, we got hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of cases. The feds, they deal with very little cases. So they can do things like that. They can set, okay, this date, we're going to set this one case, we're going to pick the case, and then we're going to roll with the trial. They can do it. So before COVID, the times that I would ever see us using alternates, what happens is when the jury's selected, the alternates don't know they're alternates, right? Like we don't tell them, hey, you're an alternate and you're an alternate. They don't know.
They're placebos.
Yeah, exactly. So before COVID, the amount of times that we would either have to use an alternate or kill a case, mistry a case because something happened, were like 1 out of 1,000, maybe 1 out of 50,000. You would never see it. You know, we would have the trial, and at the end of the trial, juror number so-and-so misses, juror number so-and-so missed, blah, blah, blah. You guys are the alternates. And a lot of times, the alternates would be upset that they are alternates.
Sure.
Because they just sat through, how many days of a trial, and they're like, well, now I'm an alternate, So the alternates, the times that we would ever use them would be never. And a lot of times when you're picking that alternate, you're not as cautious because there's just a belief that, man, we're never going to use this person. The crazy thing is a lot of times at the end of the case, when the alternates find out they're alternates, they want to get out of there. They're like, okay, well, if I'm not doing anything, I'm out. The crazy part is when they want to stay. That's what gives me the real chills. Because that's what I'm looking at. I'm like, dude, I really messed up picking you if you want to stay. That scares me badly. Scares me a lot. Jury selection. So, this murder case that we had 3 weeks ago, it's a big case. I mean, it's one of the biggest murder cases that we've had in our county in years. It was a 20-year-old cold case, tons of witnesses, tons of evidence. When you're picking a jury, that's 3 to 4 hours of questioning roughly 60 people, okay? You have a list. It's more like a seating chart that has essentially 12 people per row, and every person's like a little box. And by little box, I mean like this big, little box, okay? So you'll have their name and their juror number, and then the next box, same thing, right? But when you're questioning them, and we're talking, talking to these people for 3 to 4 hours, and the whole point is to get to know these people so well that you can make a decision of whether they're going to be a good juror for your client, right? Trying to do that in 3 or 4 hours is impossible. Like, how many times have you met somebody, hung out with them for hours, and then weeks later you're like, I saw a side of that person that I had no idea, or the guy ends up being a lunatic. I mean, we talked about this, you know what I'm saying? So it's very difficult to do. But in that little box, what I'm supposed to do is write down every response to all these questions, and we're talking hundreds of questions, that's relevant to make the decision. Well, what happens is sometimes you miss it. Like here's an example. In cases involving violent crimes, one of the almost guaranteed questions that the prosecutor is going to ask is who has had family members, friends, or people they're close to that have been victims of a crime. Okay, and you'll have all kinds of responses. We've had people say, my son was murdered, or I was burglarized, or whatever. Okay, those are important questions for me because I don't want to put someone in a jury, have them hear some facts, and then their mind starts rolling back to what happened to them or what happened, and that's what their focus is. Okay, once that happens, you can't pull it out. So anyway, in this big murder trial we probably had out of 60 people, maybe 30 to 35 people say that they had some connection to somebody who was a victim of a crime. Okay, and that question is asked at one time. All right, it's not asked individually.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So what I'm supposed to do when these 35 people are responding is I'm supposed to, as quickly as possible, identify them, which when you're talking 4 or 5 rows back and they're in the middle, you don't know if that's Mr. Garcia or Mrs. So-and-so. You're trying to count as quickly as you can. But anyway, what happens is you may not get 100% of their responses. And sometimes somebody will land on the jury because you just didn't have it marked down what their response was to a question 2 hours ago. That happens all the time. All the time. I mean, it's so difficult, the process. It's such a crazy process. Really, it's like trying the case. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it sure as hell is easier than picking the jury. All right, I mean, I kind of know what the witnesses are going to say, and when you do this long enough, the juices, man, the energy flows in trial. Like, honestly, preparing for a case, I used to like go through every word and every file. Now, I don't get the energy until I'm there. That's when it starts kicking in. So when you're picking the jury, it's the hardest thing we do, and it's crazy that we don't have a better system.
As being in a jury selection, I think myself and a lot of other jurors in that room wonder what you guys are going to talk to the judge about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because it's both attorneys and or attorneys, plaintiffs, defendants, whoever it is, and then
it's everybody.
Sometimes they're laughing, and then they're looking at us like, are they making fun of us? I know they're making a decision about jury, sure, right? But
I mean, what we're essentially doing is picking the jury by striking people out. That's how it really works, right? It's not like we say, I want that person in. It's who you're left with after you kick certain people out. But what I'm getting to is, nowadays there's so much technology. This is one of the first trials that at the same time we're picking, we're looking through Facebook. There's so much technology that can give us so much more understanding of the person, rather than me just for an hour asking, not random, but questions that people don't. No one sits around the dinner table and say, let's talk about times that we were victimized, or let's talk about people we know who've been robbed. No one says that. So it's a lot. Sometimes you get jurors as a group who are very quiet, like they don't want to talk. Who knows why? I mean, maybe they were down there at jury assembly for hours and they got tired. Who knows? But that happens sometimes, and you're literally just trying to pull every bit of information out of these people, and you don't want to say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, my client's looking at life in prison. Can you just answer the effing question? You can't do that because you're trying to put on a good show. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it gets crazy. I mean, I remember when I first started doing this, like I said, hardest thing, picking a jury, absolutely. I remember I would almost get into arguments with these people. Like I would get aggressive towards them. Like, just answer the question. Yes or no. Do you hate me and my client? That's all I need to know. Now I'm very, very good at it. But when I first started, oh God, it was horrendous. Horrendous.
I really did get the feeling of everybody that I met, to their own sense, was starting from scratch. For that specific scenario, right? So, I mean, literally somebody would just jump out and go, hey, what am I stopping you from doing today? And I'm just like, golfing? Everyone starts laughing. I'm like, why is this guy asking this question? He's trying to read me. He's trying to figure out, But, I've seen people use all the floor space, try to be funny, or, whatever they can do to relate. It's fun. It's fun for me to watch their different angles and tactics to try to, and beyond a reasonable doubt is used probably 20 times every time I'm there.
Yeah, for a criminal case, that is like the basic thing that you're taught, is on the defense side, literally say reasonable doubt as many times as you can. The interesting thing about reasonable doubt, and the reason that it's talked about so much, is no one knows what it is. Like, I can tell you what a red light is, boom, pops up in your head. I can tell you what certain aspects of testifying are, but no one knows. Like, here's a great example. If I say this is a DUI case, do I need to tell you what the legal elements of a DUI are? Probably not. You're going to think, okay, well, to be DUI, you got to be driving or doing something in a car. You got to be wasted, and you got to be wasted to the point that it ain't good, right? I mean, we don't need to give you section so and so, the legal definition. But when we're talking about reasonable doubt, and you're talking to 100 different people, you literally get 100 different responses. And the way that our reasonable doubt is defined in this state, the actual instruction basically says a reasonable doubt is not all this stuff. It doesn't tell you what it is. It just tells you what it's not. And in the words that is used in the instructions, it's if you have an abiding conviction of guilt, then you should find the person guilty. If you do not have an abiding conviction of guilt, if it's one that wavers and vacillates, then the charge is not proven and you should find the person not guilty. So when I'm picking a jury, what I normally tell to the jurors is, hey, listen, when lawyers get together and we're asked to write some things up, do y'all understand that we use way too complicated words and we make it way too long? And they would normally get a little chuckle. I say, okay, that's exactly what the reasonable doubt law is. It's a bunch of complicated, convoluted words trying to describe something that it's like pixie dust, man. It's like this stuff out there in the ether. So what I tell them is, listen, have you guys ever used the term abiding conviction? Have you ever gone to a friend and said, you know what? I got an abiding conviction to go to Sonny's today. And get a little chuckle. No, we've never had that happen. I say, well, that's exactly it. We're using these words that no one uses in normal speech, but there is a word that we use in normal speech that means a super high level of belief, and that word's faith. I would say if you have an abiding conviction in something, you have faith in it. And that is the level of belief that I would say you would have to find someone guilty. You have to have faith that they did what's being proven. So I try to wrap it in that. And man, I have some judges who freak out because I'm using the term faith, as like a religious tenement.
That's subjective.
Yeah, sure. I tell judges, look, bring in a Yankee fan. I'm sure they have faith that the Yankees are going to win. Doesn't mean it's religious belief,
yep.
But the reasonable doubt, the reason it's talked about so much, and in the end, it's because no one can really describe exactly what it is. That's one of the big weird things about criminal law. Where on the other side, civil stuff, everything's pretty well defined. I mean, you could figure it out pretty well as you go along. It's not this kind of weird ether, whether it's there or whether it's not.
So that's why they just pile drive it during jury selection.
Absolutely.
So everybody understands once you're selected that it's there. Reasonable doubt is just constantly going through the brain. The
idea is reasonable doubt is such a high standard. It's such a hard thing to hit that the state ain't going to hit it on every case, even if the person actually did what they're accused of. It's just so high, they ain't batting 100, right? That's what you want. But to be honest with you, that standard, even though it's so high, it changes per case. So if you have a case involving a child or an animal, an animal abuse case, reasonable doubt is really low. They are starting on the side of your person's guilty. Prove me otherwise. Instead of the opposite where it's prove me this guy did what you're saying he did. So sometimes it depends on the case. Sometimes that reasonable doubt standard on certain cases doesn't even matter. The jurors are not going to follow it.
So it's like a game of guess who mixed with chess?
It's a game of speed dating. This is really what it's like. It's like speed dating with a little bit of gut intuition, a little bit of Columbo, maybe I get it right, maybe I don't. And then on top of that, a game of words. Because let's say I'm talking to a juror and I say, hey, this reasonable doubt thing, you understand, super high, it's the faith. People say that we would better have 9 guilty people go free versus 1 innocent person found guilty. You understand that? Some people will say, look, I understand it. I'm not down for it. I think the system has now gotten too crazy, and I think people who are guilty go free all the time, and I don't know if I could follow that reasonable doubt. You'd say, okay, I appreciate that, right? To me, that means this person ain't a perfect juror. I'm looking for perfect jurors. Okay, this person's someone that I'm going to X out. Okay, it's not because they're a bad person. That's just their belief. I don't care where it comes from, whatever. But if the judge says, ma'am, here's the actual law, what I did the whole abiding conviction. Here's what the law says. Can you follow the law? Do you know how many people will say, oh, I can follow the law? 100% of them. Not one person's going to say, Judge, you know what? F you and F that law. No, every single one of them is going to say, well, Judge, if that's the law and you read it to me, yeah, I can follow it. So then you get into these arguments with the court about what was the words, the special words used by the juror. So it's crazy. So you have to be very calculating in the kind of questions and how you frame them and try to like walk jurors into a certain response.
Yeah, check this out. Somebody asked my room if anybody in the room had ever smoked marijuana.
Right.
I mean, the wave of silence that came over the room.
Exactly.
And the response from the judge, from everybody, was so comical because we felt like we were incriminating ourselves if we said yes. It was the weirdest situation I've been in inside of a courthouse. It's crazy. Because everybody in the room was like, whoa, hey, we're not being deposed here.
Yeah. Slow your roll.
Yeah.
I had this was many, many years ago. So I had a jury selection in a big case, a capital sexual battery case. Big case. This may have been one of my last cases that I was working with the state on. And the dude right after me was some lawyer I've never seen before in my life from like Chipley, Florida. Small town Florida, right? So his guy was charged with a really serious DUI where I think some people were really hurt. And before he goes up to pick the jury, he's trying to get the guy to plea. Like almost screaming at his client, you need to plea. That's not a good look. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day.
For the jurors?
Yeah. Because I had just picked. So then he gets up there and you can kind of tell like he's already upset that he has to go up there and pick the jury. The second question he asks is, who here thinks that they may have some racist tendencies? Do you think anybody was like, oh, right here. Oh, thank God you asked that question. It was like people were looking around like, are you effing kidding me? It was crazy. So there are questions that you ain't going to ask them. The whole marijuana thing, I'm looking to see if, look, no offense, but if you were in the jury, I'd be like, oh yeah, that guy. don't need to ask. Just keep that one in the pocket. The 80-year-old person who goes, oh, Baptist church, I'm not asking her, ma'am, have you ever smoked marijuana before? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So the first case I've ever tried in my life, this is when I became a lawyer. I don't know anything about what's going on, was a marijuana case. First case I ever tried. Dude is caught smoking weed, like literally caught smoking weed in the middle of this park over in Montclair. And the cops walk up as he's smoking out of a pipe and he has weed in his pocket. So we pick the jury and the prosecutor asked that question, who here's smoked marijuana? No one raises their hand. No one says a word, right? And look, the average age of jurors in our area is about 55. They're more on the older side, okay? So you had a lot of older people who were in this jury. One of them I can picture the guy to this day. He was like this older engineer who, honestly, if you looked at him, you wouldn't think that he ever smoked marijuana. But who knows? He could have been in Berkeley back in the 70s when he's going to his engineering school, okay? So we're having the trial. Honestly, the case was a waste of time because clearly the dude had marijuana. That was the question answered. You know what I'm saying? So the state has this little envelope that had the little bud of marijuana in it, and they're showing the jurors, person by person, the marijuana. Okay, it's about like this big. Okay, and it's in the back of this envelope. Okay, so normally what the jurors would do is they would just kind of look at it and wouldn't care. Okay, whatever. They've heard the testimony from the officer. They're not disbelieving it's marijuana. But when they get to that guy who's in his 50s, the engineer, dressed up in a button-down shirt, slacks, he's sitting on the very end, he grabs the envelope, starts like putting his nose into it. It's like, look, yeah, I can see, It's like, oh yeah.
It's legit.
That definitely the marijuana.
This is California?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm looking at this guy like, you SOB. Yeah. So that same prosecutor, many weeks later, not months later, maybe even years, I can't remember, it was so long ago. We have a case where a person is accused of animal cruelty because they shot a goat and killed this goat. All right? Only in Escambia County, Santa Rosa County, where you see this kind of stuff, man. So this was some neighbors way up in McDavid.
This is a Florida man story.
Yeah, absolutely Florida man story. But the funny thing is like if you ever go, so if you literally go straight in Escambia County and you hit that McDavid area, there's no reason that that's Florida. Like we can literally just take our map and go doop, you know, because those people that live in that area, they don't come to Pensacola, they go to Atmore. You know they spend more of their time up there. That Odom's bar, yeah. Anyway. So that was the area these people were at. And the story basically went that this neighbor's goat would come over to this guy's property, and he has a little makeshift garden, and the goat would just go mess up the garden. And he told his neighbor, keep your goat out. And one day he just goes out and pops the goat, right? Shoots it with a shotgun. The cops take the shotgun for whatever reason. I mean, it was unquestionable that the goat was killed with a gun. You don't need to take the gun. So in trial, for whatever reason, the prosecutor wants to bring up, and it's like a big shotgun. They want to bring up this gun, and they want the cop to say, oh yeah, that's the gun that killed the goat, and yada yada. So she has the gun. Okay, normally, to be honest with you, what happens in a trial when we have real firearms, they're like locked up. They have like these special locks that you can put through the barrel or yada yada. They're locked up. For whatever reason, they didn't put a lock on this gun. I don't know why, but it should have had a lock on it. So the prosecutor's up there with this cop, and the cop's like, that's a so-and-so shotgun. She has no clue how to handle a gun. You could tell. And she's like literally pointing it at the jurors. Like this, like showing, like, you know, the witness is in front of her. And what does the serial number say? And the barrel's like pointing right at the jurors. So while this is going on, the jurors are like this the whole time. And this is 10 minutes of the trial. You know, as she's waving it back and forth, it would almost be like the wave, but people ducking. Like, whoa, whoa. And I'm sitting there laughing almost. And the judge is so pissed off at me. Mr. Crawford, what are you laughing about? Because he's looking down at the witness. He doesn't know what's going on over there. And at some point, I just like point to the jurors who are literally just all, you know, and he's like, whoa, stop pointing the gun at the jurors.
Dude, some people try to make, I made some entertainment videos with some military guys, right? One of the videos was based on waving a gun just unsafely and everybody ducking and running because people don't understand gun safety whatsoever. I just saw a picture on the internet. We keep looking over at our homie Ash, who's doing this. But they actually have, gun safety is to keep that index finger extended, correct?
Right.
There's a picture bashing an officer for holding their gun like this because people just don't know gun safety. Look at this officer's gun control. And all the comments will go, perfect. And it got so much traction. People don't get it.
So, like, we're now in this modern time of these gun enthusiasts who are not military, law enforcement, or what I would call like lifetime hunters. Like, they are just now these gun experts, right? And how many of these knuckleheads do we have on YouTube? Like, today we're reviewing the new SIG, blah 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 blah, and you're like, that's a military rifle, dude. Like, what do you know about that? Like, if you were a special forces guy, I would take your opinion a little more serious. But if you're, I work down in Dunkin' Donuts, and on the weekend I'm here shooting the SIG, yada yada yada, I could care less. I don't care. But that is such a popular thing, like this, almost like gun porn. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll be straight. Those people drive me insane. I do not value anything they say. I don't care. If you have used the gun in actual combat, maybe you can tell me a story or two. Don't tell me, well, this did really good down at Bob so-and-so's range. Don't care. Go about your business, brother. I have nothing to say about that. So to me, it's just really interesting how many people are now into this gun culture where they're trying to make money off of it. Doing videos and reviews. Like, to me, it's so weird. So weird.
Yeah, and they've had to find alternative media outlets to post these videos too because they're being censored, which is odd. I'm not going to name the outlets, but I'm looking here something that it's in Arizona. They're trying to make it illegal to record police within 8 feet.
So they did the same thing in North Carolina.
Okay.
And the idea behind this is in our state, in Florida, we have a particular charge that's called resisting without violence. Okay? And if you actually read what the illegal conduct is, it's not what you think it is. I mean, if you think resisting, you think a guy like pulling away from a cop, literally resisting being arrested. That's not what this is. This is more, it can be that, but it's also if you're interfering in a cop's investigation. You can't do that, okay? That is what they're trying to do in all these other states. They're trying to say, well, if you're videotaping it, you're interfering with the investigation. Well, man, if I'm just a normal person and I'm 8 feet away, I'm not walking towards them or I'm just holding my camera up like this, what's the point? I'm not interfering with what you're doing. There's no different than an actual surveillance camera hanging off a building.
Yeah.
But they don't like that. Any law enforcement agency in our state in this day and age that says we don't want body cameras or we don't want people filming you should immediately give you pause. That should immediately tell you there's some corruption going on. That's the only thing you can say.
What is that body cam thing that's going on right now? They're trying. Some states or cities are trying to abolish the body camera.
Some people are trying to mandate it. Some people are trying to abolish it. So the original argument about the body cam, and this is true. So I will give absolute honesty on this. Is if you have, let's just say you have 500 officers. Okay, that means you're going to need at least 500 body cams. You're probably going to need 700, 800, because these things are going to break, right? They're using them every day, running after people, yada, yada. They're going to break. So you really need 800 of them, okay? So then here's the question. You got the cop wearing it when he's out there on the beat. How do they save the video? Let's say their shift is 8 hours, and they run 4 hours of tape. Do they save all 4 hours? Did they save only the 2 hours that they were actually doing active stuff? That is the biggest problem is once they go body cameras, there's so much more infrastructure that they need. They need people to download the cameras. They need people to maintain the cameras, keep them charged, all this kind of stuff. So I agree that just by the nature of having this thing that you got to charge, you got to save, you got to parse through, creates a whole lot more work. However, if your officers are good cops, that body camera 100% helps them more than it helps me. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of cases where once I get the body camera, I'm saying to myself, we're done.
Oh.
We're smoked.
No. What's the premise behind that? Is that the shut up premise?
That is the shut up premise. That is the 90% it's the shut up premise. 90% is the shut up premise. Like we talked about this. It's better to be the OG than to be the person who's helping the cops prosecute yourself. Those are the two people you can be. You can be the OG who says, what are you talking about? Why are you here? And tries to head off the stuff. I'm not talking about fighting the cops. I'm just talking about being active and defending yourself. Or you can be the person who's, self-snitching, telling on themselves. All right? Those are your two choices. I know which one I'd rather be. So yeah, it's self-snitching. And the other one is if they're a good cop, they're documenting everything that's happening. So let's say it's a case involving a stop of an automobile where they think there's some drugs inside, right? If they're a good cop and they know that what they're doing, they can position that camera So it follows them as they're doing the search, and when they find the cocaine or the meth or the whatever, boom, they got it right there on picture, on video. You know, clear as day. Think about me going to trial on a case like that, and the dude saying, "Oh, I didn't know there was drugs in my car." Instead of just having the cops say, "Yeah, so and so, we stopped them, and we thought there was some drugs, and dog alerted, and we searched the car and we found this," they can play 10 minutes of the cop going through the car. You could see the personal items. You know what I'm saying? The school book, the clothes, the whatever. So the jurors get this feel like, oh, this is most certainly this guy's car. And, oh, those drugs were most certainly his drugs. Oh. So on valid cases, that body cam, what is the number one thing everybody wants to see nowadays? Show me the video.
Yep.
Show me the video. Those body cams can be major. They just have to be, to me, it's something that they need to train on too, right? It's not just, here's your body cam, go figure it out. It's hey, when you're doing this, position it this way. You know, they can work it into what they do. That they can be professional about it. Any agency that says it costs too much money, or we need to have so many more people hired, the logistic problems, and in this day and age, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
That's an excuse, and that tells me that y'all got something going on. You know, they all should have it. So back in the day, the high up narcotics cops, like I'm talking like the vice squad is what you would consider it, the dudes who are just doing nothing but big time drugs, they would never wear body cams because they would say, well, if someone cooperates, we don't want that to be recorded. Okay, that would be their explanation.
So it's almost giving them an out for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Because there's a chance that they can benefit twice over.
Correct. It's almost like this logical reason, like, yeah, you know, we got them, but we don't wear them because we don't know if the person's going to cooperate, and we don't want that to be recorded. Okay. Do you know how many cases I won because they didn't have body cams?
Really?
Smoked them.
Really?
I mean, I had one big drug case where the lead investigator, who was like, I'm talking a 15-year vet. I mean, this guy knew his stuff, right? Smoked them because they didn't have a camera, or I was like, even your cell phone, pull out your damn cell phone. As we're doing the closing argument, he comes back into the courthouse. Now, he doesn't need to be there anymore. His time testifying is gone. He could go to the office, go home, doesn't need to be there. He hears me give the closing, and then as we're walking out, as the jury's going back, he's like, yeah, man, we just lost that case. I just literally saw it happen as you're there doing it. And that's what I tell him. I mean, I'm not trying to be sneaky, but I was like, hey, I understand the point about you guys not wanting to have video of people cooperating. But you know what? You don't have to turn that video over. There's literally an exception in the law that says you don't have to do that. And if you actually had a video of my client admitting to 400 grams of cocaine, that would have been pretty nice for the jury to see. Because that's what you told the jury. You told the jury that you pulled them into the bathroom, where you pull everybody for whatever reason. They love interviewing people in the bathroom. And my guy admitted to all the 400 grams of cocaine. Man, wouldn't that be nice if there was a video saying, yes, sir, the 400 grams you found, those are all mine.
No, and they have the right to hold that. So he basically was lack of knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, it's on their side, and this is like across the board government, man. They do what they're told to do because that's the way that they did it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like no one, you don't, on the cop side, you don't have the new creative hipster guy saying, what if we do this? No. You do it that way because that's the way we've done it for so many years. Well, why do we have Starbucks? Because we decided to do things differently. Starbucks is what's created the hipster movement, man. How many of these hipsters would have jobs if it wasn't for baristas?
Yeah, and understanding that an XL is a small, and a small is an XL, and it's in a different language.
Yeah. I mean, we're not talking about the diner days where Lucy fills up the same nasty pot of coffee over and over again. That mentality of the diner, the old pot of coffee, that's law enforcement. We do it that way because that's the way we've always done it.
I've got a funny story that I just pulled up.
Okay, hit me with it.
Florida. This is from 2018. Florida man on lawnmower hits cop car, gets arrested for DUI.
Absolutely.
Now, you told me a story about a bird scooter that got chased down.
Yeah.
Have you ever
down Cervantes.
You ever experienced anything crazy? Even that bird story, if you want, but anything on those terms? Florida man on
I
lawnmower.
represented someone who was out at the beach, and literally just drove straight into cop cars. You know how they park on the sheriff's? Just wasted, right into them. That's happened a lot. We had the bird scooter guy who felony fleeing and eluding on a bird scooter. The cop pulls up next to him and he's like, "See ya," and just hits it. Literally he says something like "See ya" or "I'm out," and just hits it on the bird scooter. So the funny thing about these scooters and the electric bikes, I mean, just basically, let's just say everything that you see now in our state, that's still a DUI. The only thing that's not a DUI is if you're riding something on your own power. If it's powered in any way other than human power, it's DUIable, you know? So you can, I mean, I'm sure the city is not out there trying to stop people on these birds, but they could. They could if they wanted to. If someone's swerving in the road, a little tipsy, you know, swerve. What was that? What the saying? Swerving like Mike Jones or swerving like George Jones? George Jones. You know, so if they're George Jones in it, yeah. We had one over in Santa Rosa where a dude. Okay, this is great. He's driving one of those lawnmowers. Okay.
It's a lawnmower.
Yeah, it's a lawnmower. You know, one of these riding lawnmowers. And it's the north end of the county. So there's this like corner store. I guess it's a gas station. I don't know if they have gas or not, but it's in the north end of the county. And you'll know it because it's like the only store up there. And it's real close to where they have like this boat lift going whatever river it is, okay? So the dude lived in that area, you know, country guy, just cruising up to buy some beer. And I remember him saying it was because the gas mileage. He's like, well, man, that's like 30 miles to the gallon or whatever. You know, like that was his rationale. Okay. So he gets his beer. He's coming back. The beer's hanging off the side of the lawnmower. And a cop stops him. And the cop's like, hey, listen, man, just do me a favor. Pull this thing off the side of the road. Okay. Hop in the car with me and I'll take you home. So that area of Santa Rosa, one of the things that's interesting is people fly down those country roads. I mean, 45, nah, man, we're talking 65, 70. So that's what the guy was upset about. Like, hey, if you're cruising at 10 miles an hour on the road and some cars come flying up on you, this could be bad. So they told the dude, pull off on the side of the road, hop in the car, we'll take you home. So they take the guy home, okay? Cop says, it was a deputy. Deputy says, listen, clearly you've been drinking all day long, okay? Stay in your house. Don't do anything. Just stay there. Okay, you got your beer, you're good to go. So oddly, for whatever reason, the cop was going to go back to where the lawnmower was. And I can't remember if he was going to put a sticker on it, but he was going to do something with the lawnmower to like let people know it's not abandoned. You know, he was going to like maybe he was make sure it was like off the road, fully off the road. So cop goes back to the lawnmower and he's doing whatever, moving it off the road. And the lawnmower is in between the dude's house and the gas station. So the dude, now driving his truck, going back to the gas station, literally yells something at the cop like, make sure you take care of it. Says something to the cop as he's passing him. The cop turns around, follows the dude to this little corner store, ends up busting him for a DUI, and the cop's like, what are you doing? He's like, man, I need some cigarettes. He's like, I got the beer, I needed the cigarettes.
Man, to get a chance.
Yeah.
To get a chance and then just drive by and say something to him.
I remember talking to the officer because he was like, this was ridiculous. And what the dude said was so stupid. The officer was like, I don't even know why he screamed it out to me. Like, it was so stupid. The cop's like, I remember the cop was like, I wouldn't even really have known that the dude was driving by me unless he said whatever the hell he said. Cop didn't really remember what exactly the dude said.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that one was an interesting one. But I've had people DUI on scooters. Bay County, when they would do spring break, you would see tons of those. Tons and tons of DUI on scooters. All these spring breakers out, a little liquored up, driving around those stupid little scooters. You would see tons of that.
How does a scooter or those e-bikes, how do those DUIs normally pan out?
Normally pretty good. As long as there's not like an accident and there's a good reason why they're out doing this, they're normally pretty good. One of the problems with the e-bike, and e-bike's like new thing to me, because back in the day, you would have guys that had so many DUIs, their license would be permanently suspended, okay? So what they would do is they would go buy these kits to put them on normal bikes. You know what I'm talking about? So the idea back in the day is if you're, I think it was 50 or 49 cc, like that was the limit. So if whatever you were on was below that, you didn't need a license. It didn't fall under the license requirement. So whenever I would see these people driving around, immediately I would know you had too many DUIs. No one's cruising around on these things out of fun. They're normally doing it out of necessity because they ain't got no license.
I've got one more question.
Yeah.
This question, somebody said this to me. If you have a certain amount of DUIs and you move to Florida and you get your license issued,
yeah,
they can stamp you undrivable forever.
It's one of the worst things that happens, and I've seen it happen so many times it's almost sickening. And the beginning, when I would first see it, it would be a lot of times military individuals. So let's say at one point in time, these people are stationed in Hawaii in the 80s, and then Minnesota or Virginia, okay? And let's just say for whatever reason, the person maybe had a drinking problem back then or whatever, and they would get a DUI in 1985 in Hawaii, one in 1990 in Virginia, maybe one in 92 somewhere else. The majority of states, there's only about 2 or 3 minority states, but the majority, so let's say 47 states, are all on this interpact agreement to share driver's license information, okay? And now, this is kind of like a more modern problem, and I'll explain a little later. But so the idea is what happens is these people will have a valid license. From the last one I saw was from New York. So they'll have a valid license from wherever they're coming from. They show up at Florida and they say, here's my license. Florida will run a national search. And if they have 3 or more DUIs, Florida will say, here's your Florida license. Oh, give it to them and immediately take it back. Oh, you're now permanently suspended. So on the Florida record, it's a permanent suspension. And they cannot go to any other state that's part of that compact and get a license. Like, let's say they went to Texas. Texas would say, okay, let me do it. Oh, you're permanently revoked. We can't give you a license.
That is incredibly...
It's insane. And there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do.
I can't believe it was just brought to my light. I didn't think there was something... I didn't think they could just do that. Especially if you're legally driving elsewhere and you just come here and they're like, ho, ho, ho.
That's exactly what they do. You can have literally a valid license from wherever. And they'll do their little search. If they pick them up, you're done.
And you can avoid that by not applying for a license.
Yeah, so normally it's like a 6-month leeway if you're becoming a resident of our state or if you're here for more than 6 months. The exception is the military people. They can rock wherever they got. So those people I would say, yeah, don't get a license here in the state of Florida.
Gotcha.
Or, look, would you rather have a permanent suspension of your license or get stopped because you didn't have, within the 6 month, a Florida license? It's an easy one,
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, so let me get to this. Now that all the states are all online, connected, they can do these searches like this, you would have tons of people back in the day that would be like hiding out from some case in California or Texas or Oregon, wherever. They would be hiding out because the systems wouldn't communicate. Or they would get like a bunch of tickets here, but they just wouldn't worry about it, right? Now that everything's locked together, it is a nightmare. Because if you had a DUI in whatever state, Oregon, and Oregon wants you to do X, Y, Z, and you did it, but you didn't redo your license, you came to Florida and you got a Florida license instead, it's insane to try to redo the stuff in Oregon or redo the stuff here or try to take care of that stuff when you're down there. I mean, it's always a problem. And look, man, trying to deal with DMVs in our state and other states, it's impossible. You can't get anyone on the phone who can give you a straight answer. You may get like 3 different answers the 3 different times you call. You know, I remember when I first started doing this, and a lot of my cases were cases involving driving and DUIs, I would get so upset because I would call the DMV and like almost threaten to sue them because of this kind of stuff, right? And their canned response is, well, Mr. Crawford, a driver's license is a privilege. It's not a right. You know, so that's what the law says.
Yeah.
It's a privilege. You're not essentially guaranteed it. For you to function in our society, what do you need?
Driver's license.
A driver's license. Is there any way to function in our society without a driver's license?
Not successfully.
Not successfully. Not even close. You know. So if you have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you probably need a driver's license for that. And there were some Western states like North Dakota, you know, that would say, no, driver's license is a right. You definitely need that. So that's the one thing that always would upset me. Because the state of Florida, if they want you to do something, the number one way they control you is through your driver's license. Do this or we're going to suspend your license. Pay that or we're going to suspend your license. Jump through this hoop or we're going to suspend your license. You know? So why is it that when the government wants money, the number one pressure point is your driver's license?
It's odd. Does it have everything? Is that what that is? Smart ID?
I mean, the reason it is because you need it to function.
Yeah.
So they know that is the worst thing they could take from you.
I get it.
You know, it's a sick joke. So it really is. And then when you don't have the license because of what they did, they prosecute you for it. Mr. So-and-so, why didn't you get the license? Well, because you guys suspended me for 5 years because I made some stupid decisions when I was 21. That's why.
Dude, if somebody...
You know, I've never had someone go to court and say, you know what? You're right, Judge. I didn't want that license. You're right. Why did I get it? Because I hate it. I didn't want it. It was always because I can't get it.
There's only one human I know in history, Norm Macdonald. Never got a driver's license.
Good for him.
Good for him. And he navigated through life. I mean, he had his own solutions, you know?
Yeah.
I think it was a way for him to hang out with people. Way to get it. Social interaction was somebody had to come pick him up. You know? And he was that talented.
Man, when I first started, sometimes I would use cabs to go some places. And I would get tons of business from these people, right? Because the people who are taking cabs, they don't got licenses. They got some problems going on. So I would just give them like stacks of cards. Give these out to whoever comes into your cab. And we would get tons and tons of business.
It's brilliant.
You know? It wasn't big paying bucks. I mean, when I first started, I didn't care how much you paid me. It was just me trying to get my name out. Like if you showed up with a button and you got yourself a lawyer. You showed up with a carton of eggs. I gotcha. You know, I was literally just trying to represent as many people as I could just to get the name out there, right? Then what happens is after so many years, you're like, man, maybe I should have been making more money. Maybe I should have been charging more. But yeah, I mean, we never really hit clients hard. And some other lawyers would charge extreme amounts. I mean, I've tried a murder case for like $8,000. You know? So I can say it was never about the money. It was about the love of the game. Now that I'm getting older, do I want a little bit more money? Yeah, I got kids, man. I got house, building, you know?
Yeah,
so,
peace over price, man.
Yeah.
For me, right now, peace over price. I'll live under a bridge if I'm happy. You know what I'm saying?
I do want to get the fight back that I had when I was younger. Because, man, I would fight on everything. I mean, I was a terror. What I learned is maybe that's not the best way to be sometimes, right? You know, better to use honey to get the things you want. But, man, trust me, I would fight on everything. Look, there are so many things that are given as obvious nowadays. Like when you go to court, so many procedures that are giving us. I'm the one that started a lot of that stuff because I was the one screaming and shouting about this or screaming and shouting about that. You know, I can honestly say there's tons of things that have changed because I screamed and shouted and said, we're not doing this correct. So I want that back.
You know, I think with my perception of peace over price in my process, peace and price come together as long as you value the peace. You know, because people see your honesty, they see your truth, they see that you're grinding, that you're trying to do it, and if you keep that sphere of good people, keep that positive attitude, the price ups with your peace. I don't know. That's kind of some weird.
One of the strange things when you start to get to the real high level stuff, and I'm talking big murder cases, you know, big cases. What happens is you can't do it all in a row. Okay, think of the OJ trial, right? There's no way that OJ, that trial would have went that way if he only had one lawyer. I mean, he literally had a team of lawyers. And you have to imagine behind that team of lawyers are also a team of assistants and people in the office and clerks and yada, yada, yada. So what you start to realize is when you get to the bigger stuff, you have to have a team behind you. And that is honestly one of the hardest things to adapt to. It's so hard to take yourself out of it because there's so much work to do and spread out, and to have other people do it. That's one of the hardest things for me. Absolutely, because I want to be seeing, involved, knowing everything. In trial, there's only one dude trying the case. That's me. So I have to know everything. Yeah, so it's just difficult, man. It's tough. But trying cases, people who don't really try cases, I don't care for what their opinion is. It's the same thing with the gun stuff, right? Like, don't tell me what's the best, you know, concealed carry because you went down to Bob's range, you know? I want to talk to a dude who uses the gun all the time. They've actually used it in defense of something, right? That's the same stuff when we're talking about lawyers who really try cases. Don't be some dude on YouTube talking about the Johnny Depp case and you don't try cases. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I almost want like a COVID card for trial lawyers. You know, like bust out your COVID card, brother. Let's see when the last trial was. That's what I want. Bust it out, dude. Let me see the hole punches. You know, in prison, when people would transfer from one prison to the next, they would try to take. So in prison, there's literally a history of your conduct in the state system. So that will include your previous state charges and then any like violations you've had in the prison. And you can get it all on one document form, maybe multiple pages, depending on how crazy you are. So what happens is when you transfer from one prison to the next, a lot of times the prisoners on the receiving side, your new jail, they want to see that because they don't know who you are. You know, if you transferred from another prison, it's not like you're coming to that prison straight from court. So they want to see, man, are you real? What's going on? I want the same thing for lawyers. Let's see if you're real. If not, don't tell me how the 6 Sauer, new P90 whatever is the greatest concealed. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, people try to tell me how to act on a microphone, and I'm sure people try to tell Ash a certain riff on your bass was wrong. And I find that insane because I'll turn around and go, how many times you been on a microphone? 0. What on earth are you doing?
Yeah.
How many times you played a bass guitar? I dabble. Well, I do it professionally. And then law? Yeah. And then law?
Right. and the crazy thing, because this is the new way of the world, right? Doing videos and going on YouTube and yada yada. And people are doing this for marketing. We started this for fun. Now it's getting more and more professional. But I can't stand watching these other lawyers who don't try cases talk about this stuff. And I can guarantee you, within 2 or 3 minutes of talking, I can know whether they're real or not immediately. And then what really upsets me, if I have a client or a friend, or even my wife, oh, I saw on YouTube or I saw on the internet, blah 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 blah, I don't even want to respond. Wrong, not not true at all. Like that Johnny Depp case, I could spend days talking about the good and the bad and what was happening, and I can break it down almost to like a science, right? When these other idiots are talking about their opinions of it, I don't need to hear it.
You played soccer and rugby.
Yeah.
A lot of people find soccer boring.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand it.
Correct.
I find soccer very captivating because I see the little battles. I see the strategies happening all over the field.
Right.
Or the pitch, right? I feel like it's the same way. They just don't understand the all-encompassing effect and all the elements that are going on. And it's hard to listen to people who I'm going to use the word hubris. They truly think, a lot of people who watch pro sports, a lot of people watch NFL specifically, they really know what's going on. It's like, you know what a crackback is? You ever been licked without being seen, without seeing it coming by a 300-pound lineman or a 300-pound linebacker? If you haven't, I don't know, man. Your opinion's tough to listen to.
Yeah. I mean, so who's the Patriot coach? What's his name?
Belichick?
Belichick. Okay. So if Belichick's on YouTube talking about game strategies, and I could care less. Honestly, I'm the kind of person I don't care. I would watch that. You know what? Because it's like having the history professor who's the expert on the Roman Empire giving you a little lesson. Now, do I need Jamie so and so who's been who's won his fantasy draft league telling me about strategies? No.
That's where we're at. That's where we're at.
That's where we're at. I don't need that. I would listen to Belichick, the Alabama coach. I would listen to Nick Saban. I would listen to him. That's about it. It's mind-blowing. I mean, people just want to make money without working. Mm-hmm. And they want to be experts in stuff that they're not experts in. And for whatever reason, the big things are guns, video games, sports, celebrities.
Oftentimes, those with the most criticism are the ones that didn't have the guts to make the moves that you're making. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if I wasn't trying cases, we could be doing videos every day. You know how hard it is to get me to sit down in this seat. It's not because I'm out hanging out. It's because we're literally working the amount of time that we work. I mean, I got a million things to do upstairs. I'm down here because this is enjoyable, and I like to have feedback from people who say, hey, I saw the video and I liked it, whatever. And my business is it's something that I think people should know that people don't know. Maybe because they're too busy watching damn Jeremy talk about his fantasy league and fucking Steven talk about shooting the new Ruger whatever. I think it's pretty important to listen to what we guys say too.
Yeah, Desperate Housewives of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is,
Man, I was watching, something popped up on the TV at my house. It was like Married to Medicine. Have you seen this one?
No.
Oh my God. It's crazy. It's crazy nowadays. Look, we talked about, what's his name? Theo Von.
Yeah.
Okay. I met Theo Von when reality shows were just coming out. All right. We had The Real World was the first real reality show, right? That was like mid to late 90s, somewhere around there, right? And then we may have had Real World 2 and 3. Then we had Road Rules Challenge.
Yep.
Okay. That's where Theo was. So I don't know if he was on the first one or the second one, but I met him right after that. All right. And of course I recognized him, right? But he wasn't a celebrity. We weren't there yet. We weren't there where the reality people are now celebrities. I mean, think about that first Real World. That was like some of the most emotional, heartbreaking stuff there was. That was some of the realest content ever done. You had, what's his name? The guy who he had HIV.
Was it Pat? Puck.
Yeah.
Puck was hitting people.
Puck was hitting people, eating other people's food. You had the dude who had HIV, who had like a special diet, and he was eating his food. I mean, and that guy, it looked like a beautiful person.
Yeah.
He's a super nice guy, right?
Theo didn't fit in whatsoever.
Correct.
was not accepted. So there was a wonderful dynamic. I remember it.
Yeah. I mean, so that first Real World where you had all these different personalities and they were like going through real world stuff. Like I said, one guy had HIV. Puck was kicked out of the house. That was some of the best content, right? Now we're on like what? Bachelorette 57, 58?
Yeah. And go figure the first music video ever played on MTV was Video Killed the Radio Star.
Yeah.
The irony to that.
Right. Yeah. So it was weird, man. When I met Theo, no one knew who he was, or it wasn't like he had a mass following of people around him. I thought he was a weirdo. I mean, honestly, I thought the dude was like halfway homeless when I met him. So it was,
He still is weird, man. He just capitalized. He found out that they say reality TV is the death of an aspiring actor, comedian, whatever it is, and Theo has beat that theory or law as a comedian.
Dude, when I met him, he wasn't funny.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened, but he got pretty funny.
Yeah.
Maybe he just wasn't trying, or I mean, he was a unique person. I would never say anything bad about him. He was just a unique dude who I just ended up meeting in a random way.
I would like to think that he made a good amount of money from that reality TV show, or at least enough for him to not want to go back to the corporate world. So he started scrambling, searching, and hunting, and he found his different avenues and outlets. His podcast is based on mental health, and then his stand-up comedy is hilarious, but he's had to work at it very, very hard because it's always been against him.
Right.
Naturally, the universe is against that reality star doing that. So he's a motivation to me, for everything that he's accomplished, considering the odds are against you. From
the dude that I met many, 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 many years ago to the guy who now has the podcast and YouTube, yada yada. I wish him even more fame. You know what I'm saying? Like if he becomes the greatest comedian of all time, I would say awesome.
Yeah.
I want that dude to succeed. Some people on YouTube could care less. It's almost like you could see the desperation of these people. Like you could see like, oh, you really don't want to actually have to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I can see Theo. I can see the pain that Theo's endured. You can just visibly, you can see the guy as an empath, and that he feels it. And so, like, to hear testimonies on his show of people that are still alive because of his show is pretty inspiring. But
we're in a spot now where your ability to do the stuff that we're doing now, making this content, makes a difference, right? And there's different levels. You got the video game guy, Dr. Disrespect. His production is through the roof. I mean, he's doing like big time music videos every hour. The production's unreal. So if that guy makes big time money and yada yada, I have no problem with that, because you can tell that there's a lot of work that goes into it, right? The people who just making stupid videos. Who's the guy? He's a fighter. You know what I'm talking about? It's like two brothers that were doing these YouTube videos, and they didn't start out poor. They actually had some family money.
The Pauls. Jake and Logan Paul.
Catch me on that. You know what I'm saying? Catch me on that. I would much rather be hanging out with crazy Dr. Disrespect than the Pauls.
Yeah. I got to give Logan credit. When Vine was out, he worked hard. He did put in the work when Vine was there. But his following got so big from Vine that it's just been an easy coast from then. All he's had to do is screw a few things up pretty badly and come back with humility, and then have some fake boxing matches and make a couple $1 million. I can't stand it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, yeah, dude, he got there. He did it. I mean, all good for him. But I mean,
he's obviously hasn't lost his money either. So whatever he has done with this cash has worked out.
Between the boxing and the merch and the views, I mean, somebody said it was a ballpark of 15 to 20 million a month.
You got this guy Blippy who does kids videos. Blippy, okay? They're saying this guy's 25 million. Blippy. I mean, it's insane. Insane. This is what we all need to be doing.
Oh, we got a local guy, Jeffy.
Oh yeah, the Mario dude, right?
We got
Mario Kart.
We got Mario, but this guy, I just learned about him. He just put a merch shop in the food court in the mall, His name's Jeffy, and he's just a goofy puppet. It's puppets, still
Oh,
puppets.
yeah, I've seen that.
He's just a silly puppet. That's Pensacola. I didn't know that was Pensacola until they posted up shop.
Good for him.
Just a goofy little puppet. Millions and
You
millions.
see him and his girlfriend's cars around town. They're Peach and Mario Lamborghinis or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Super Mario and Jeffy? They might be the same. They could be the same.
No, that is their vehicles. Like you'll see him parked in the mall. Like that's the kind of assets he has from that.
I've seen it's the princess.
Yeah, so people listening, subscribe. hit the like button. What's the other bell? Hit the bell button too. Subscribe.
Don't forget about our Patreon.
Yeah, right. Our OnlyFans. Go to it all.
We're trying to get all streams of income covered here.
Right.
You know what? We're starting to ban Spotify. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify. Chris,
that's the one thing I got to be honest that I'm very, I think is so impressive because I have no musical ability whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
The people that have the ear that can hear it and say, oh, like even tuning guitar, that's like magic to me because it all sounds the same. Like, oh, I need a little tweak here. I mean, that to me is that an artist who can actually paint and actually draw, magic. It's magic to me.
Yeah. The setup right here is incredible, and that's almost magic to me, to be honest with you. And I'm super ecstatic to have you here, Ash. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Super good.
How's he looking? Right? Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so what else? What else are we going to talk to about conclusion?
I've got to be somewhere in 10 minutes.
Okay, well, that sounds like it's it then.
Man,
sounds like a wrap.
I enjoyed the heck out of it. As a first run for this, I felt like we jumped a new level of conversational flow. And then bringing in guests and whatever it is, there's just a level of comfort in here that's different than up there. And also,
It feels more secluded, doesn't it?
I don't feel like there's anybody else. I mean, there could be people listening, but the carpet, nothing's bouncing, nothing's moving. It's just the atmosphere is awesome.
Yeah.
So, and now we got to get sound tiles and lights. But other than that, how do you think it went?
I think it went well.